More so for the podcast, but I'm doing a double dip where I'm not just doing the podcast. I'm also doing I'm doing the video for the YouTube. So stick around, and we're going to be just as confused about Anthony Joshua's situation for this week as we were on Saturday. Let's go to the groovy intro. So, Anthony Joshua is fighting this weekend. We have no clue who he's fighting whatsoever right now. David Haye floated out that Derek Chisora or somebody said that he was going to be fighting Anthony Joshua. I penned a piece for Pro Box TV. I love Chisora as a fighter. I love his fighting spirit. Totally should not be fighting anymore. He's taken a lot of punishment. And I get that could be a quote-unquote cool old guy fight, but Joshua really should be pursuing legacy. If we're going to be doing a Chisora fight, this would be one of the greatest lost years of Joshua's career if we're going to consider him a great fighter currently, because he's going to have fought Jermaine Franklin, then after a PED violation, fighting Chisora, who everyone crapped on Fury for fighting last year. It's kind of classic Joshua, right? He beats Klitschko. We really want Joshua to win, so Fury's win prior, that's not as good because we like Joshua more. If he fights Chisora and people justify this but crapped on Fury, I mean, it's like, when can we be accountable here? Because I get that he's the modern-day Sugar Ray Leonard, that there's a morality component. He's a really nice guy, at least his public image is presented in such a way. But we also have to understand that we can't just move the goalposts because we're fans of a fighter, right? Joshua has had more advantages than any other fighter in this division in terms of the money he makes and the political leniencies he carries over. He has every advantage over every fighter, and he's getting the bare minimum out of his career. Now, I understand he's in a very tough spot. Dillian Whyte tests positive for something that we still don't even know what Dillian Whyte tested positive for. The fight was terrible, so for me, it's like, I don't care. Not really interested when Joshua doesn't fight someone that's interesting to me at this point, because I assume he should beat these guys, like Dillian Whyte and stuff, but I also assume it's going to be 12 really boring rounds where he's like in doubt and questioning himself the whole time. So it's not like I'm sitting on pins and needles eagerly awaiting it. I just think Anthony Joshua is Frank Bruno. People loved Frank Bruno, but Frank did well against certain guys and did well against the Hall of Famer, or didn't do good against the Hall of Famers, and that's what Joshua is trending at right now. I wouldn't begrudge Joshua if he doesn't fight this weekend, but I don't know what he's doing. If he fights Chisora, it's just like, okay, what a wasted year. Really uninteresting fight. Like, Chisora and Big Baby Miller are two really, really unhelpful fights for the perception of the sport, because Big Baby Miller's coming off some PED violations. He's kind of got to earn this fight in the sense of, we got to see more of a built resume without a violation before you go into a big money Joshua fight that was off the table, at least in my opinion. Chisora really should be, if he's going to fight, it needs to be like a retirement fight, because he's just taken so much damage. I understand the fans love him and that he wants to keep fighting and he's a warrior, but I really don't want to look back 10 years from now and Chisora's in a bad way and we think, man, we should have been saying something when he was getting going, and it just feels dirty and wrong if those are the options, to be honest. Guys like Filip Hrgovic and Dempsey McKean, I would personally like it, but let's be honest, as I always say with Joshua, there's a 50-50 chance he loses if it's someone moderately competitive at this point. I think his confidence is killed, and I think he also is battling some heebie-jeebies against late-minute replacements, and I also think that Joshua, the problem with him is two things. He can't turn defense into offense, offense into defense, which is his kryptonite, because when he does an offensive move, he stays on the line, then he has to do his defensive move. And it's always going to be a problem with the highest level fighters. And then his other issue is, why am I blanking on what his other issue is? Well, I think his other issue is confidence, unless it comes back to me if I had another issue that I was thinking of. But I think his other issue is confidence. I think that he doesn't believe and have the same conviction behind his punches as he used to, because he's thinking about, if I keep going, I might get caught. So I think he's doubting himself a little bit, and you're seeing that doubt he might have in himself with the way that he's being moved this year. 2 losses to Usyk, and now he's being, Jermaine Franklin, that's a top 15 heavyweight, going from fighting one of the best heavyweights in the division. I mean, Dillian Whyte, that's top 15, maybe a fringe back end top 10 heavyweight, maybe at this point. If you put in Chisora, that's a top 20. I mean, the names that are being floated out there for him are not even really top 10 heavyweights, and that's the state of Anthony Joshua's career in 2023. Plus, there's big money for him to fight Wilder at some point, either in the fall or the early winter of 2024. I just don't really see if he does fight this weekend, but by the time you hear this, you'll probably know if he's fighting. I don't see the upside to him being in an extremely competitive fight because he's an extremely vulnerable heavyweight who's extremely average at everything, which typically that makes you good. But in the heavyweight division of fighters with such big proportions, big sizes, and so forth, you really want someone that has like excessive power, excessive speed, tremendous boxing ability. He's kind of average across all the boards, and what we've seen is when he gets in there with guys that can roll a shot at a world-class level, it's pretty hard for him. We saw it with Joe Parker. The jab was troubling him. He's like, whoa, I'm getting punched. Why won't you just stay there? Little things disrupt him, and there's a little bit of what with Joshua, what I see in the ring is a little bit of a bully. He loves being able to dictate the action. When things go against him, he just doesn't know what to do. He starts to freak out, and I don't think there's that much of a fix when you're in your mid-30s to a mentality of like that. I think he's mentally fragile, and you'll probably, if he stays on this date, you're going to just see a hand-selected opponent to keep him busy that maybe can be told to the general public that there's a form of competitive nature to the bout, but it probably isn't. It's probably a predestined outcome for the most part. On the undercard, if anything doesn't change between now and then, Filip Hrgović is fighting Dempsey McKean. Dempsey McKean is a guy that my guy Box Rick Gray is super high on. Filip Hrgović is probably one of the greatest fall-off stories. He beat Big Bang Zhang last year. That should elevate him and move him to the next place in the sport. Wrong. He actually has been inactive. Zhang beats Joe Joyce. Zhang is now a big name in the heavyweight division. Hrgović, despite winning the fight, everyone looks at it as though he lost the fight. He looked fundamentally unsound, defensively irresponsible in the fight. Now he's coming back against a big unknown guy that everyone says hits hard. Hrgović should win, but I think there's absolutely no excitement around his career, and he was being labeled as a fringe boogeyman up until that point, and now it's kind of looking like when is he going to get really found out. But I think that's always when there's a myth and an era around people, the tires deflate that much quicker. We also had Derek Chisora rumored to fight Gerald Washington. I've already done a video on this fight. Go back to the YouTube page. Just a general quick thought for the podcast, folks. It's not an interesting fight at all. I'm fine with it if it's a cool old guy fight. It's a one-off, Chisora trying to get a win. I believe Gerald Washington works with Malik Scott now. Washington's probably like a part-time fighter working with Malik Scott in some capacity. Stayed in shape, 41 years old, willing to take one last fight. I'm not as opposed to it because it's probably going to be a 3-round fight either way. Someone's probably going to get stopped based on conditioning. But Chisora is getting to a point where we really have to pump the brakes because he's probably not going to say no on his own accord, and he's taking a lot of punches. So that's the general of this card. Who knows what it's going to look like? It's just a mess. The card sucked before. It's probably going to get even worse with Whyte getting off, but I don't think anyone outside of British fans were very excited about this card. So there it is. If you want to know more, go to the channel, subscribe, all that stuff.